have been reported since last April. In the Thames Valley, it's even worse, with more than 300 incidents.
Well, police say officers have the right to go about their work without being spat at, but civil rights campaigners have expressed misgivings. More now from Martin Dowse.
Yeah, if I put it on for you, normally it gets put on from the rear. So with the subject's hands will be behind their back, handcuffed. I'll just pop it on.
A police officer demonstrates for us how the single-use spit guard works.
So it's brought to the front here, so there's a slight V here, so it gives us sort of bit of a void. So it's quite easy to breathe. I can see you quite clearly, I can hear you, and I could follow instructions that were given to me by a police officer. 17
of the UK's police forces now have them. Hampshire was already using them in custody suites. Now they and the Thames Valley Force have jointly announced they'll be part of every frontline officer's kit.
What we've seen recently is an increase in the incidents where officers and public and other emergency services personnel have been subjected to assault by spitting. And on occasions that has involved blood, and that puts officers at risk, but also it's just a disgusting and vile act. And the evidence would suggest that this is the best thing we can do to protect our officers and the public from being spat at.
Frontline staff in any uniformed role can find themselves the target for spitting. This footage captured the moment a bus driver in Bournemouth took action against a drunk man who spat on him as he boarded his bus. Police officers say spitting attacks on them are increasing, but the use of guards or hoods has been criticised. Campaign group Liberty called them cruel and degrading, and there are fears they could cause panic attacks in vulnerable people with mental health issues.
I don't believe they are ethical at all. It's akin to individuals we see in Guantanamo Bay. That shouldn't be right on the streets of Hampshire, Thames Valley, wherever that may be.
If you don't spit at the police, you won't have to wear one. So it's really simple. This equipment will help to protect them against some nasty diseases and the concern that has been raised by so many of those officers. So yes, absolutely, I welcome it.
These stills show an incident involving British Transport Police in which a guard was used. The man arrested was later released without charge. Hampshire and Thames Valley say that every officer will be fully trained in the spit guard's use and that anyone with one on would always be properly monitored and never left unattended. Martin Dowse, ITV News.
Well, that story and your views on the subject can be found on our website, itv.com/Meridian.
The government has been accused of arranging a deal with Surrey County Council to stop a controversial council tax referendum. Council leader David Hodge dropped plans for a 15% rise in council tax, instead proposing 5% instead. Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn raised his concerns at Prime Minister's questions.
My question was, what deal had been offered to Surrey that got them to call off a referendum, and will the same deal be offered to every other council going through a social care crisis?
Well, Mr Hodge has denied there has been a deal. He says the government now understands the pressures in adult social care and the need for a lasting solution.
The RMT Rail Union is planning talks with Southern in the long-running dispute over driver-only trains next week, but it's warning of more strikes unless the company meets demands for a guard on every train.
Meanwhile, drivers who belong to ASLEF are voting on a deal to settle their dispute. A decision on that is also expected next week.
Well, our transport correspondent Mike Pearce is live for us now at Chichester Railway Station. Mike, 10 months of chaos. Surely this can't go on much longer, can it?
I'm afraid it's a case of, oh yes it can, and I think it probably will. So what happens is next Tuesday the RMT go to meet Southern at ACAS. The RMT is saying tonight firmly that it will only do a deal on the basis that there will be a guard on every single train. Of course, Southern wants flexibility to operate trains driver only if there's disruption, and a whole set of circumstances that have potentially been agreed by ASLEF. So as things stand tonight, we could see more action. I don't think those talks are particularly going to last that long because of what the RMT are saying with their demands as well. Earlier we caught up with the RMT to hear what they had to say.
And we're going to make quite simple demands. We want a second safety critical person guaranteed on that train, or the dispute continues, and we will be talking to our reps and members to see what more action that they want put on.
Could that be strikes?
Of course.
What then can now happen to solve this?
Well, the government have to have a rethink. We're not bound by any deal that any other union done. We need to be at that negotiating table, and we need the promise of a second safety critical person on every train.
And Mike, a further warning, the controversial driver-only operation could even spread, it's said, to other train operators here in the south.
Yes, indeed, and particularly South West Trains. They're buying £200 million worth of new train carriages, 150 carriages. Those will be fitted with driver-only equipment. The RMT is saying it understands that that could be introduced in the future. There's an existing franchise operating contract that lasts until August. South West Trains is saying there are no chance of driver-only operation before then, but of course that newly negotiated contract coming in August, we don't know what it's going to say. That could involve driver-only operated trains. The RMT say if South West Trains and other companies want to go ahead with this, there will be a summer of discontent. So strong words from the RMT tonight.
Mike Pearce at Chichester, thank you very much indeed.
Parents are protesting tonight against plans to close a secondary school in Basingstoke. The move would see Fort Hill Community School in Winklebury, where student numbers have declined, merge with Cranbourne Business and Enterprise College. The move has left families feeling angry and frustrated. Hampshire County Council has issued a statement that secondary schools with fewer than 400 students do not perform as well as larger ones.
Major investment in West Sussex has been welcomed by the County Council. An additional £16 million has been awarded by the government's growth deal, which will be used to create jobs, homes and business space.
You're watching ITV News in the Meridian region. Thank you for choosing us. Coming up,
we share a 12-year-old boy's journey to America for treatment that could change his life.
More on all of our stories, you can head to itv.com/Meridian. Any views or news, call us on 0808 1010 095 or get in touch via Facebook or send us a tweet at ITV Meridian.
Now, a meeting's been held this afternoon in Westminster to discuss the problem of Lyme disease and raise awareness of the condition, which is spread through tick bites.
There are claims that many thousands of cases of the disease are going undetected, claims denied by the Department of Health.
Kevin Ashford's been speaking to a woman from the New Forest about exactly how the disease has affected her.
Kelly Mayer has only just started to get her life back on track after years of living with the symptoms of Lyme disease, a disease she believes she caught from a tick bite near her home in the New Forest more than a decade ago. Until recently, she had to rely on a wheelchair to get around and suffered from extreme fatigue as well as joint and muscle pain.
Really weak, I can't move.
It was only after being seen by a doctor in Belgium that she managed to get a diagnosis and then treatment, which has transformed her life. Kelly has set up a group to try to improve awareness of the disease. Hers is one of the organisations behind today's meeting for MPs.
The amount of suffering that this can cause, you think you've reached the worst and then something else pops up. And we know that thousands more people are going to be infected with Lyme disease. And the way things currently stand, there is a shocking number of cases being missed or misdiagnosed.
It can be a complex illness. The symptoms of Lyme disease can develop up to a month after a bite by an infected tick. Around half the time, the reaction is a bullseye-shaped rash. If treated early, it's harmless, but untreated, the symptoms can become much more serious.
No diagnosis? No diagnosis because they're
Dimitrios Loukas is also a Lyme disease sufferer. He too had to go abroad before his condition was diagnosed and treated. The group he set up has just carried out research which suggests the number of undiagnosed Lyme disease cases in the UK could run into thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands.
We need a dedicated clinic set up immediately to look after those people, those patients that have fallen through the net. And I must make it clear that there are children suffering from this disease who also test negative, just as I did.
There are a lot of people out there with conditions like chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, psychiatric conditions, autoimmune conditions that may actually be infected by I call it the sort of signature agent of Lyme disease, and that's an organism called Borrelia.
However, the Department of Health disputes claims that cases are being missed. They say, unlike private laboratories, UK testing for Lyme disease uses robust, scientifically validated methods, and there's no evidence that large numbers of cases are going undiagnosed. The size of the tick population in the UK is said to be increasing, another factor likely to increase the number of diagnosed cases of Lyme disease in the country too. Kevin Ashford, ITV News.
Now, when we think of the cancer treatment proton beam therapy, the story of Asher King, the 5-year-old taken abroad by his parents, comes to mind.
Indeed, his family wanted him to have the treatment abroad and hit the headlines when they took him out of Southampton Hospital against his doctor's advice. Asher was declared cancer-free in March of last year.
If children meet certain criteria, then they are sent overseas by the NHS. Treatment for hundreds of patients is paid for by our health service because it's not yet available over here.
Now, one of the most recent cases is 12-year-old Sean Bull from Winchester. His family agreed to film his experience. Here's our social affairs correspondent Christine Alsford with the first of her special reports on Sean's journey.
He might look like he's having the time of his life, but there's only one reason 12-year-old Sean Bull has made the 4,000-mile journey across the Atlantic from his home in Winchester. And that's to receive pioneering proton beam therapy for a tumour on his spine, treatment not yet available in the UK.
It's a huge risk, but there again we have probably got another option. If it can offer Sean a good, healthy, normal life, then that's a risk worth taking.
Funded by the NHS, Sean and his parents have travelled to Oklahoma for 10 weeks, referred by experts from Southampton.
So today marks the first of our visits.
Lauren, nice to meet you. Lay back for me, and your head's going to go on this towel.
As well as all the preparations, there's plenty of explanation for Sean too.
An X-ray, well, it just goes right through you, like you're just made of air. But we don't want to treat all the way through you. We want to just treat where the tumor is, right?
Experts say conventional radiotherapy is a bit like throwing small balls at a big, thick jelly. After they hit the tumour, they can carry on and damage other tissue as they pass through. But protons don't travel as far and release a sudden burst of destructive energy as they stop.
The way that they can stop the beam going through so it doesn't do any more damage to Sean is, it's incredible.
Who do you think should be eligible for this kind of treatment?
I don't know, do away with everyone.
Because beams must come to a halt in exactly the right place, moulds and masks are made for each individual patient to keep them precisely in position.
Woohoo! All right, does that look like you?
Sean was diagnosed with cancer 10 years ago. With surgery ruled out, chemotherapy worked for a while until Sean grew into adolescence and the tumour grew too.
You feel a bit anxious about what might happen, or what?
Sometimes, because sometimes you don't really know what's going to happen or what's going to happen next.
It must be quite difficult to live with.
Yeah.
You wish it was you, and you would put yourself there any minute of every day. He is so inspiring, Sean. He just takes everything in his stride. He has given us the strength to cope with it.
This is the gantry where I have my treatment. This is Kim.
Kim's part of the team who gets Sean into position every day before his treatment can begin. Treatment that should be painless, but can't be filmed because the rays would damage a camera. The Bull family want to share their proton experiences to allay the fears of other families facing the prospect of a similar trip.
What would you say to any other children who were facing going ahead with proton beam therapy?
Don't really worry, because it just goes past really fast and it feels like a dream before you know it's over.
Every child who successfully completes their course of treatment is given a graduation ceremony. Ringing the bell in the medical centre marks the end of this step in Sean's journey. Then it's time for some of Sean's trademark moves.
Oh, nice catch.
And some fond farewells with the consultants who have guided him through the whole experience.
You're a good boy. We're going to miss you around here, you know?
The only physical signs of treatment heal within weeks, but it will be 3 months before doctors know how successful it's been. Yet it's now a waiting game filled with hope.
Lovely to see Sean smiling there.
Absolutely.
Well, Christine joins us now. Christine, this type of treatment is about to become more widely available, is that right?
It is. It's going to be coming to this country next year. We're going to have 2 NHS proton beam therapy centres, one in Manchester and one in London. Now they're costing £250 million and will treat approximately 1,500 patients a year. There will be another centre in Reading as well. That's a private one. But between them, it should make this type of treatment more widely available.
Christine, how do doctors decide which patients should get proton therapy treatment abroad at the moment?
Well, there are set medical criteria, and if you don't meet the medical criteria, you wouldn't be funded. So Sean's family are incredibly grateful that they've had the opportunity to have this treatment paid for. They met several families when they were in the States who were actually funding this themselves at a cost of around £100,000. Wow. So a lot of money. But we've been speaking to a doctor in Southampton who treats children, and he says most who will benefit from this treatment are receiving it funded, and it's not being restricted on the basis of cost.
If you look at the criteria, there isn't a set number of patients that we can only refer every year. We refer as many patients as fit those criteria for maximal benefit and maximum effect. So I don't think there is a rationing from that point of view, but what we're saying to ourselves is who's going to get the maximum benefit from proton treatment.
More tomorrow, Christine.
Indeed, we're going to be with Sean when he meets with his doctors to find out whether or not the treatment has been successful.
Look forward to it. Christine, thank you.
And fingers crossed as well. Thank you, Christine. Now, drivers are now facing fuel costs at their highest level for 2 years, and compared to last year, it's about £10 more to fill up the average family car.
Well, across the region, we've seen prices ranging from around £1.16 for a litre of unleaded petrol in Portsmouth to almost £1.23 in Winchester.
Well, our reporter, Matt Price, has spoken to a taxi driver who's even considered quitting his job because petrol prices are affecting his profits.
You're having to work extra hours.
Razak Hussein's been driving taxis for the past decade, with one noticeable change: the price he's paying at the pump.
It makes me feel upset.
A 20p increase per litre since he started out is having a knock-on effect on the money he takes home.
It's frustrating in that with the fuel prices going up, my net pay is actually going down. I probably spend £80–90 a week on fuel. Last year, I would have been spending £15 to £20 less.
When Razak started out, it cost him £50 to fill up his tank. Today, it's closer to £65. One study shows the price of both petrol and diesel are now at their highest for more than 2 years. RAC figures claim the South East is the most expensive place to buy fuel, with petrol costing almost £1.21 a litre at the end of January. And for those driving a diesel vehicle, a little more, with prices on average at £1.23 a litre.
I don't know, it's a little bit scary because I don't have much money, but I have to use my car to get around.
Quite costly. In fact, it's very costly.
Obviously not pleased, especially when the price of a barrel of oil doesn't seem to be going up much.
Fuel prices rose by 2p in January and followed a 3p increase in December. It's despite the wholesale cost of both unleaded and diesel sitting steady. Motoring organisations are tonight advising us to shop around.
In your local area, you'll know the best place to go. Supermarkets often are the best places, but there are lots of independent retailers that pride themselves on having a good price, so make sure you know where yours is.
Campaigners are putting pressure on the government for more transparent pricing. Fair Fuel UK want an independent watchdog to monitor costs.
We are calling for a body called Pump Watch. We've got Ofcom, we've got Ofgem, so why shouldn't we have something like Ofpump, and we're calling that Pump Watch? Because drivers are being ripped off every time oil prices change in the market, and we need to get on top of this.
The Chancellor announced in the autumn statement that fuel duty will remain frozen for 2017-2018, which means prices will be 18p per litre lower than they would have been under pre-2010 fuel duty escalator plans. Razak's having to put in extra hours to make up for the cash he's losing, and says the cost of fuel could leave him with little choice but to leave his job behind. Matt Price, ITV News.
Schools offer a wide range of clubs these days, from Spanish to soccer, art to archery. But if we told you about a club at a school in Brighton, you would think we were kidding.
So what you did there, that's because it involves the care of creatures usually found on a farm. Tony Green will explain.
The new intake at Vondine School are animals. They're smaller than the smallest pupil, but they're not kids anymore. They're pygmy goats, brought to the school by Finance Director Hilary Goldsmith.
Well, I worked in a school previously that had a school farm, and that was always very popular with the children. When I came to Vondine, it seemed to be the kind of place that was creative and looking for something very engaging for the children to do. Goats, because they're friendly, they're easy to manage, they're small, but they're still very inquisitive and great fun for the children to learn to be around and to interact with.
It's great fun. The goats are great fun to be around. The kids find it very entertaining. They're very active, and just the sense of something a bit different and in quite challenging and difficult times, something to make you smile is quite nice.
The goats are named after Vondine schools, which means there's a pygmy goat Maya Angelou, Bertrand Russell and Alan Turing. They're all looked after by the school's goat club, which has more than 100 members.
I think it was at the start of the year I saw posters around the school saying Goat Club, and I was like, what? I joined up and I found out I was actually pretty good at it.
As well as being really soft, they're really friendly. And they're more friendly than you'd expect something like a goat to be. It's like a friend, but it doesn't talk to you. A friend that's an animal, really.
With friends like these, no wonder the Vondine staff and pupils are delighted to have got their goats. Tony Green, ITV News, Brighton.
They are very endearing, aren't they?
Very endearing.
Would you
I've
like
got
a
somebody
goat?
I would, but
Okay.
I've got an old goat for you now.
No.
Getting you back for yesterday.
I'm staying here.
I'm sorry about my companion. I
It's
do
too late.
apologise.
It's too late.
Oh my
It was a
goodness,
great
now look what you've
relationship.
done.
Anyway, look, we had
Yes.
Sorry.
we had lots of pictures coming in.
Yes.
And a lot of them will make you go, "You've got to be kidding." When
Really?
I reveal what they are. So have a look at this first one. Any idea what that might be?
Looks like a potato.
It does. It's a lump of clay, to
Is
be
it?
honest,
Yes.
that was dropped off at the Brent Lodge Wildlife Hospital near Chichester. And with a bit of cleaning up, you see what it is? It's a little hedgehog.
Simon, you've got to be kidding.
Exactly, bang on the money there. What happened was this little hedgehog was being pursued by an interested dog, rolled into a little ball, rolled into some wet clay, and then got stuck, unfortunately. So he was taken to the Wildlife Hospital and brought out, and there he is looking well. But apparently he's doing very well now, although at the hospital they have got a load of spare hedgehogs because they're all coming out of hibernation early.
But it goes to show hedgehogs aren't stupid.
Exactly,
Yes.
they're not stupid. But do you want some other animals? as well?
Yes, go on,
Interesting
yes.
creatures. Here's one not covered in clay, but it's got two heads. Look, Nigel Flint
Wow.
came across a two-headed swan. Look, Lauren Bissell from Bournemouth was at the New Forest Wildlife Park in Ashurst when she found this. Who knew there was such a thing as a push-me, pull-me wolf? Look. And Sue Donnelly, at the other end of the scale, that's a cow with two bodies and just the one head.
Well, it
but
happens.
Mike Stride came across this. That's a horse in Burley that can clearly read, or how else would it know it's got its own private parking space? And finally, cheeky ears squirrel ever from Donna Challoner. Oh no, hang on, it's not its tongue sticking out, it's a nut it's eating. We're in the clear.
Ugly rumours about a drop of snow?
Yeah, I can give you a wintry flurry.
Oh, a wintry flurry. Do we want one? You're going to get one. Simon Parkin.
From blizzards to pool, driving through Europe. Eurotunnel the Shuttle sponsors ITV Meridian weather.
Now, if you found yourself moaning about how chilly it was today, there is an upside to the cold weather, and this would be it. 7:52 last night, and Mike Williams saw in the sky above West Sussex the moon and a moon halo surrounding it. You get one of those when the moon's light is refracted through the ice crystals in the upper atmosphere, basically on a very chilly night. So we've got more than a few of those to look forward to over the next few days. High pressure out to the east of us means that we've got very cold air coming in from Europe, where they're getting daytime temperatures temperatures of -4, -5. For us, it won't be quite that cold, but 2s and 3s as we head through the rest of the week. It's once we get into next week that we start to see the more mild air drift back our way. So just a week of chilly and we should be fine again. As for this evening, not the warmest of nights. There's a widespread frost developing, hence the blue across the map here. Some clear spells. There may even be an odd shower here and there too. So watch out for ice on untreated surfaces because temperatures will be down to around freezing, perhaps a little below in some rural spots. So certainly a frost to wake up to tomorrow morning. And as we head through tomorrow, it's going to be a relatively cold day. Good deal of cloud on top of us. 1 or 2 bright spells. Showers could perhaps turn a bit wintry over the higher ground, but nothing of any significance. But look at those temperatures. Today we had highs of around 5-6 degrees. Tomorrow for some of us we'll be lucky if we get above 2 or 3. And even where it's milder down towards the coast and the Isle of Wight, you won't notice because that cold northeasterly breeze is going to make it feel quite raw. As for your high tide times, you can see in Portland just after 5 in the morning, 5:45 in the evening.
Eurotunnel the Shuttle sponsors ITV Meridian weather.
And that's how we look tonight. In just a moment, we've got the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale.
Stacey Paul's got Outlet News. Do join her if you can. But for now, from the team here at ITV Meridian, thank you very much indeed for watching. From Sangeeta, from me and the man most unkindly christened the Old Goat, it's good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.